Hello and welcome. I'm coming to you from the boardroom at the Canberra Innovation Network, where we have a very special Facebook Live. I'm about to introduce my guest in a moment. For those who don't know me, I am Serena Bird. I'm the founder of the Joyful Business Club. I am really passionate about helping women and men in their business, especially in the startup phase. I'm currently running a 12-week mastermind course as well, and there are still places available if you would like to join us with that one. And I also do one-on-one work as well. But before I go, without any further ado, I should say, I would like to introduce you to my very special guest today, who is an amazing LinkedIn specialist, and that is Jonathan Lalos.
Yes.
Got your surname right. Wonderful. So, Jonathan, perhaps if you could explain a little bit about what your business does, because your clients are very important people and people that many businesses really need, but perhaps don't know they need.
Yeah, so my primary demographic is people with autism. So we help them transition from the workplace, from school into the workplace. Predominantly funded through NDIS to give them the supports that they need to build the skills to enter the workforce and gain confidence.
So, what kind of issues are there? How is it different for a neurodiverse person entering the workforce, for instance?
So neurodiversity is around people thinking differently to what's called neurotypical, which is normal in inverted commas. So someone with who's identifies as neurodiverse uh, may not have the social skills, or may have sensory processing issues that normal people might not have. Me, for example, I'm very sensitive to smells. Some people might be sensitive to light or noise, and they can be susceptible to meltdowns or shutdowns where they just freeze and stop doing anything, or they just have sudden outbursts.
So, working in a very open plan, sardine type office where the person next to you's got curry for lunch, and maybe their personal grooming isn't as fantastic as you might hope, and other people are having a loud discussion on the meaning of life in the other area, and there's also sort of fluorescent light everywhere.
Yeah,
Would all those sort of things be triggering for some people?
definitely. So it depends on the person, but they're definitely different triggers. And that's where there's a movement which is starting to gain traction on educating people about, so similar to the people with physical disabilities is people with intellectual or developmental disabilities like autism, where accommodations are made in the workplace, for example, changing the type of lights or having them in a quieter area or noise cancelling headphones so that they can thrive in that environment.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't think about that. We just assume everyone is like us.
Yeah.
Mm. And what kind of, positive attributes and benefits do neurodiverse people bring to a workplace culture?
So, from my own experience, I have the ability to identify patterns. So, everyone is different. That's just one example. There's also pe- some people are fascinated with a subject, and they'll deep dive into that subject and learn about it more. Others have a huge attention to detail. So they can be very procedure based, do quality control and testing, stuff like that. So testing in IT.
So, a proofreading role for someone who's neurodiverse and good with detail,
Yeah,
right up their alley.
yeah. So they could proofread things like promotional graphics and stuff like that.
And they pick up stuff.
Yeah,
Well, I'm, not a huge details person. So on the disc scale, I'm sort of a high I, high D, also an S. So I'm kind of fairly extroverted, good at talking, uh, good at getting on with people and brainstorming new creative ideas, but I miss a lot of detail. So I can see that benefit of having people with different strengths within a team and an organization.
yeah.
Because if everyone was like me, no one would get a word in, I don't think.
No,
Well, not that bad. I hope not.
yeah.
So, if you are online and you're joining us, I'm speaking with Jonathan Laylaws from Self Plus Plus. So, he runs a specialist consulting business for training and support for neurodiverse people as they enter the workplace. And today we are talking about LinkedIn. If you are online, I'd love to hear about your LinkedIn experience, especially where you are on LinkedIn. So, now what is so important about LinkedIn? There are so many different social media platforms and networks. Why do people, especially people in business, why do they need to be on LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is the predominant social media network for professionals. So it's where businesses go to connect and other professionals. There's a lot of HR people, a lot of sales people. It's where a lot of business development managers go to network, small business owners such as ourselves. Um, so it's the target demographic is small business owners and other business people on LinkedIn. Another great thing about LinkedIn as well is the organic reach. So Facebook does limit the organic reach of your posts, as you probably realise. But the great thing about LinkedIn is I can get at least 10 times more organic reach without spending a cent.
Wow, I didn't realize that it
Yeah,
has more organic reach as
yeah,
well. And it is a different kind of feel, isn't it? Like when you're looking at Facebook, it tends to be, oh, that's my cute kids
yeah,
or grandkids, depending on your age, or nieces or nephews, or my cat,
yeah,
or what I had for dinner last night. I mean, there are more things, but I think with Facebook, it's almost, wouldn't say it's fake, but there is a bit of fake booking. You know, it's about your life and it's your social connections.
yeah.
And you might join a Facebook group because you align with that tribe, but in general, you know, it's fairly light and fluffy.
Yeah, and there's some stuff on Facebook that might not be appropriate for LinkedIn as well. So there's like humor pages and memes and stuff like that, which have no place on LinkedIn and wouldn't be seen in a very good light.
And so I'm curious too because LinkedIn, I'd always seen that as a kind of professionals kind of HR kind of tool, which I think is kind of how it was developed in a way.
Yeah,
It was developed a bit like a human resources tool, and you can apply for some jobs now directly through LinkedIn. So, you know, and this is something that recruiters will often look at your LinkedIn profile, but you're talking about it not necessarily for people in the corporate space, but also for small business owners.
yeah, yeah. So I've built up my professional network over the past probably 9 months now for my current business. So I have been on LinkedIn since about 2012 in my previous roles in corporate and government. But I've just 9 months ago, I started developing my LinkedIn connections to build relationships with other professionals in my industry so we can have a two-way referral systems. And there's also a few collaborations that have come out of that as well.
And that's really interesting too, because I'm going to be honest here and say that a lot of the networking groups I go to, and I know we go to a lot of the same networking groups, people still connect with me on Facebook, but not on LinkedIn. Now, I find this really fascinating because when I go to other, say, in my corporate or my public service life, people would be more likely to connect on LinkedIn. But the small business owners, they don't tend to as much.
Yeah, so from what I've seen with the networking that we've done, a lot of small business owners might not have the level of confidence using LinkedIn, or they may not even know that it's there or what it's
Yeah.
capable of.
Yeah, and I think that's, and I think, you know, they really need to have more of a knowledge about this because if, you know, and I'm just speaking personally, if I've met someone once in a networking event, but I don't know them very well, and then they send me a Facebook request, I'm a bit like, and who were you again?
Yeah,
Like, you know, are you real? Are you spam? You know, am I prepared to open up my family, my private life to you?
yeah.
Like, I'm sure we might be besties, but like, I've only met you once. So it's kind of a big step to do. But when people connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more likely to look at their profile, what they're doing professionally, and I'm more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, it's set up very much like an online resume as well. So you can showcase your experience, and there's nothing too personal in there like you might put on Facebook. So there's no picture of the kids at the beach or holidays or whatever. So it's entirely professional content that you'd be happy sharing with people that you've just met at a networking event or somewhere else in your line of work.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always surprised that, you know, more people in small business don't connect with each other on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
regularly because it makes sense because you met someone, you want to deepen that relationship, you want to connect with them, and it seems like the most logical kind of platform to do that.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is just a stepping stone to building the relationship further. It's much like the other networking events that we go to. So that's where you meet people, but you don't do business at the networking events or on LinkedIn
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
So it's a stepping stone to starting a professional relationship with someone. And so what I tend to do
yep.
is contact someone and arrange a 15-minute sort of get together, see how we can help each other out. So do some give before you take as well. Not just sending through pitch straight away because I found, like myself, I block people when that sort of stuff
Oh, I've
happens.
had that as well,
Yeah,
and it's really annoying. Next thing you've got someone sending you all these pictures about, wanting to offer you whatever services.
yeah.
And yeah, it's really frustrating. And yeah, um, it's not authentic and it's not real, is it?
No, it's almost like spam.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So, and it's in some ways it's harder to identify than Facebook. Like Facebook tends to be personal spam, like
yeah,
potential romantic attachment with a view to extorting money spam, and it's a bit easier to spot.
yeah, yeah. Although there may be a bit of that that does go on LinkedIn as well. You,
Yeah, I think
I'm
so.
sure people. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
but when
But
I
LinkedIn is not Tinder, though. Like, just be
yeah.
clear, it's a very different vibe.
Yeah. So when I do accept, look at accepting connection requests, it's it's very important to go through their profile, see how you may be able to complement each other. So how you might be able to help each other out. So, for example, if there's someone in Europe who's in a completely different industry, I think a red flag is crypto trader.
Oh, yeah. Well, I get a lot of that because I write about personal finance, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of that that's going around
So
at the moment.
that's a red flag. So if they're in Europe and they're a crypto trader, then yeah, that's highly likely they're going to send something that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I would hear you then. So, like you're talking about, when you're looking at someone else's profile, you're scanning them to see whether they're legit, authentic, whether you could work with them or not. What can people do to enhance their own profile? So when someone looks at them, and that they're not going to say, okay, you're spammy cryptocurrency trader from Europe, who's after something a bit dodgy, straight delete, delete, delete. So how do
yeah.
you create a good and viable LinkedIn profile?
Okay, so one of the most important things is to put as much information in your profile as possible. By doing that, you become what's called a LinkedIn All Star. And that's sort of like SEO on your website. So if you have as much information that's relevant to what you do, it's more likely that you're going to appear higher up in people's search results and get more connection requests, which is a double-edged sword. But um, there is a limit to the number of invites that you can send out. So back to the profile. So one of the most important things is having a professional photo, a professional style photo.
So
So
not a photo of you at the beach with the kids.
no, not a photo at the pub or at a party or whatever, yeah, with the kids at the beach. So something that you'd be happy to put on your website, for example. So that's one of the first things that people see. And another one is the title, which that also appears in search results as well. So I've got uh, who my target demographic is, what I do, how I can help them. There's a few bits at the end about author, podcast, speaker, and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, that makes sense because I guess I hadn't really consciously thought about SEO on LinkedIn, but it's really important. And actually, when I meet someone for the first time, that is usually the first way that I search for them to see where they're valid. And this is in a networking sense. And we were joking about the romantic side before, but when I was on the online dating scene before I met my now lovely second husband, that was also a way that I would look at screening people too. They might have said that they were a cryptocurrency expert or whatever. And so, of course, the first thing you do is look at their LinkedIn, profile and see whether they are actually doing what they're telling you that they're doing, and also to who they're connected with
Yeah,
and what they're sharing, whether they're active.
yeah,
So this is, you never know who's going to find you on LinkedIn. And I find actually a lot of LinkedIn searches for people comes up higher on Google than other things as well.
yeah. And if you are concerned about privacy and information appears publicly on your profile.
And so in terms of building your, LinkedIn community, say there's a few people you might want to connect with. Like, how do you go about that on LinkedIn? Like, how do you go about searching for them? How do you go about connecting with them?
Yep. So I'm going to rewind all the way back. So the first thing, it's much like any marketing that you do with your business. You need to have an objective in place. So what are you aiming to achieve on LinkedIn? So do you want to meet people to do collaborations? Do you want to meet business clients on there? Do you want to get referrals from other people? So that's one of the first things you need to consider. And then after that, once you know why you're on LinkedIn, then you need to know who you're targeting. So are you targeting other small business owners? Are you targeting people that own gyms? Or in my instance, are you targeting people like NDIS support coordinators or psychologists, stuff like that? Um, then LinkedIn has a search bar on pretty much on just about every page. You can just type in a role, for example, small business owner or something like that. And then there's a lot of different filters that you can use. So you can filter by location, you can filter by first, second, or third degree connection. So a little bit about that. So first degree connection is someone who's in your network already that you're connected with. Second degree connection is someone who you've got a common connection with, and that's who I like to target on LinkedIn when I'm sending connection requests. So when you do run a search, you'll see a whole list of people, and then you can go into their profile, or you can instantly connect with them on the search page. I tend to avoid connecting with them straight away from the search page because that doesn't give you the opportunity to put in a personalized message. So I go into their profile. If I leave it for long enough, sometimes they send you a connection request first
Because it comes up.
because they can often, depending on your privacy settings, they can see if you view their profile. That's a whole different kettle of fish. I like to leave that on for that reason. But so if you go into their profile, there's another connection button where it gives you the opportunity to add a note. And I always, in my note, I'll say, hi, such and such. I notice we're connected to this person and that person, and I thought it'd be a good idea to connect on LinkedIn. And that's had quite a high success rate for people connecting with me. Combination of what I've set up in my profile. So more than welcome to have a look at my LinkedIn profile, and uh, if you want to connect with me and just see the sort of stuff that I've put in my profile. Um, yeah.
That makes sense because if you're connected with people who are working in your space, like you said, people who are in the NDIS space, who are working with neurodiverse people or other people, so they're already in your LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and then you're connecting with connected people who are connected with them, they can see firstly that you know people who are credible,
Mm-hmm.
and then also to linking back to your profile, which is also credible.
Yeah.
And a key third thing is what you haven't said, which you haven't said, come along to my course, which only costs this amount of money and change your life.
Yeah.
Or do
Yeah.
you suffer from this problem? Let me,
Yeah.
whatever. And you're not also constantly going back to people and bombarding them with stuff.
Yeah.
So you've just said, I'm in this space, basically, I'm
Yeah.
legit. If you want to have a valid connection, we can.
Yeah. And so once I've connected with someone, then I'll see if I can find their email address. More often than not, they'll have the contact details in their profile. If not, there are plugins that you can get for Chrome that can harvest them, and then I send out an email. It's basically the invitation for a 15-minute like one-on-one, and then have a discussion, get to know a bit more about what they do, why they do it, and then see how we can help each other out, and then just keep checking in on them.
So you don't send them a dodgy how to improve your SEO kind of message.
No, no crypto requests or
No
anything like that.
crypto.
No.
So it's all about relationship building.
Yeah.
And so a separate but related question, Often I get ads for LinkedIn Premium.
Mhm.
Have you used LinkedIn Premium?
I have used the trial. So my opinion on that is the trial's there to see if it's suitable for you. While there are some good features on there, so there's like training, there's the ability to send to third degree connections. So none of the stuff that I do uses any of the premium stuff. It That's also centered around sales reps and HR as well. But my opinion is try it out, see if you like it. For me, it wasn't for me personally, but see if you like it. If it's worth the money, then by all means, go out and continue using it. I think it starts from around $40 a month, and it goes up from there.
And I guess it's useful for professional recruiters as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
because they get a bit of additional information, and it's useful if you really want to know who's looked at your profile.
yeah.
If you're the sort of person who really wants to know that.
Yeah, that's so if you don't want people to see that you've been viewing their profile, which is called private browsing mode, and you want to see other who's viewed your profile, then that's a premium feature. But if you're in public viewing mode, then you can still see who's viewed your profile.
Yeah, so basically, if you sort of want to stalk people or want to know who's stalking you, it's really useful. But actually, no, I'm not going to be too flippant about that. I don't recommend anyone do stalking of anyone at all. But like it can be very useful, say for recruiters, because
Yeah,
they don't want people to know. They want to just sort of browse around and see what talent's out there. They don't necessarily want to
yeah,
advertise the fact that they're doing that,
yeah,
which is quite useful,
yeah.
as you can imagine. But for average small business people, it's probably much of a muchness.
Yeah, so as I said, try it out, see if you like it, and if you don't, then you don't have to go through. You can just cancel the subscription before the end of the trial and uh, just go from there.
And so you do a lot of work, obviously, in training, particularly with neurodiverse people on LinkedIn. Why is it so important for people who identify as being neurodiverse to be on LinkedIn?
I think it's important for everyone. I guess it gives people who are neurodiverse another avenue of communicating with people. So some people may be nonverbal and may not like going to networking events in person. So it gives them another avenue for getting out there and connecting with people in a way that's more comfortable for them.
It makes sense, and I guess two things like job interviews, which are very, people make judgments about how you present as well, and
Yeah.
if you are the sort of person that finds that kind of talking.
Yeah, so LinkedIn doesn't quite replace job interviews as yet. I think we're in the very early stages of being able to accommodate neurodiverse people in the job application process. So there are some workplaces, especially in the government. So you've got places like Specialist Stern and DXC that do their flagship programs, and there's a couple of other places around town that specialise in autism recruitment as well. And so we're in the very early stages where the accommodations, such as doing video interviews and work trials, but I think as time goes on, as the movement towards getting making people aware of the benefits of hiring neurodiverse people takes off, then those accommodations will become more commonplace.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really have learnt a lot, and I've learnt a lot too from your presentations on LinkedIn at the various sort of networking events that we've both been to, notably Business at Breakfast. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile at all, create one. If you are at a networking event and you meet someone on LinkedIn, connect with them. And in fact, a handy tip is that LinkedIn has a QR code. So you can, go at a networking event, and if you want to be environmentally responsible and reduce paper rather than a hard copy, business card, you can actually say to people, let's scan each other. Here's my QR code. Yeah, it works.
All right.
It works really effectively. Um, that's something you can do, and then you can connect with people on their LinkedIn straight away. And also, something I like to do too is that if I'm on a seminar, and I'm listening to some really amazing people, and I go, I really like that person, is I'll immediately connect with them on LinkedIn and say, thank you, I was listening to you at this event. I really enjoyed what you said on blah when you were talking about blah, blah, blah. That really resonated for me, which to me is a stronger message just than, oh, I just want to be your friend.
Yeah, yeah. Or just sending a blank connection request. Yeah,
Or a blank connection request.
yeah,
I think explaining, the context
yeah.
in which, someone's really important. And on that, I know I said I was going to wrap up, but, one of my podcast episodes is with a guy called Eric Sim, who's big on LinkedIn. So he's got over 2 million followers on LinkedIn. I know, pretty
Wow.
amazing, right? Anyway, so how I got him as a podcast guest is that I saw something he'd written on podcast on LinkedIn. So he actually has a newsletter on LinkedIn, and he regularly shares articles on LinkedIn. And I saw we had friends in common, and actually I didn't know he had over 2 million followers. So of course we'd have friends in common, but I really just liked what he'd written. He'd written his experience of finding employment um, after the global financial crisis. So he was working in the banking sector, went to the UK to do a master's, then tried to come back to Hong Kong or Singapore to find a job, and it was really difficult in that environment. And he'd written quite truthfully about that, and I thought it was really relevant for the COVID times, and it was really well written. And so I sent him a message to thank him and to say how much I liked that article. And then he responded back, and then I went, hey, you know what? Do you want to be on my podcast? Now, he didn't actually say yes straight away. He said, I'm really busy right now. I messaged me back in 6 months. So I did. I messaged him back in 6 months, and then he agreed. And it's a great podcast episode. So you never know who you're going to meet on LinkedIn. But, the engagement has to be genuine. Like if I just sort of said to him, and sent him a pro forma about, I want you to be on my podcast. And I'd sent those same wording, say, for instance, to, nearly every prominent person I'd met on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure I would have got zero guests. So it has to be really targeted, and it has to be genuine, and it has to be authentic.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it is with the rest of it. So connecting with people as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So get LinkedIn linked up on LinkedIn. The Joyful Business Club has a page on LinkedIn, so you could start by connecting on there. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn. So Jonathan Lalos, Laloz. I've got it right. I managed to misspell his first name.
Everyone does it.
It's no excuse. The funny thing, as I was saying, is because I knew he was good with details, is I kept looking at the surname so many times to double check the spelling of that, and then completely misspelt the first name. And you can also connect with me. I'm Serena Bird, founder of the Joyful Business Club, also known as the Joyful Frugalista, and also more recently the Joyful Fashionista. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.